recording. Okay, so welcome guys to this week's meeting. So we will start with a prayer. So any volunteer?
I can say it.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead. Say it, Kim, or do you want me to?
Go ahead.
Okay, sounds good. Our dear gracious Heavenly Father, we are so grateful for this wonderful day and for this time which we have to come together as a group to be able to discuss our learnings from this past week's study. And we ask you that we will be able to help one another to be able to expand our horizons and what makes the most effective group and how we can better ourselves. And we say these things humbly in the name of our Savior, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you. So for this week we had only a case to analyze and a document that we needed to read on, and we have 5 questions to go through and analyze them. So let's start with the first one. So it says, from your personal experience, what have been key behaviors in effective teams?
Well, I've been kind of thinking about this just as, going back to work this week. I've been part of my work team again, and there are definitely some things that work well with my work team, and there are others that don't work so well. But I think one of the biggest things that creates effective teams is just creating an environment and an attitude where everyone wants to be there and wants to do their best. And I think the best way, it's top down usually. If you have a good manager and someone makes you feel like, your work is appreciated and that you're doing a good job, you're much more likely to work harder for them and be more invested for someone like that than a manager who's just kind of a task driver and micromanages what you do all day long. So yeah, that's been my experience.
Thank you, Kimberly. What about Stuart?
Yeah, just on top of that, just with even like in the last year, I've been in a lot of groups. I've done a lot of different group work, and I think, and it talked about this in our reading that we had to do for this week, and we'll be discussing about, is just totally being like having a no judgment zone, and kind of letting people think kind of out loudly their ideas, and accept the dumb ideas for what they are and move past them and use those to be able to maybe create a more finalized image of things. And at first, I was in a group when I first started doing this, and I honestly was like hating my group members. I was like, these are like the stupidest ideas in the whole entire world. Like, get back on topic and let's try to figure out what this problem is. But it was because we got out like our stupid ideas out of the way that we were able to really start focusing on what the main problem was, and we found a really great solution to those problems. So I think just having that environment of trust and open-mindedness where you're not going to judge somebody for what they say, but you're going to move that the conversation in the direction that you need to go.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I also think that when that's the environment and that's the attitude, you're going to get a lot further than if someone's, if everyone's thinking, oh, that's stupid, they're going to think that's dumb, I don't want to, you're not going to put yourself out there, then yeah, you're not going to get the best outcome that you can.
Yeah.
Yes, I agree with it, and thank you for sharing both of you your thoughts on it. And yes, in my personal experience, I've been working in the same team for almost 3 years already. And actually, when we have good communication, it's when we can start working as a team, because we will get along with each other and we will be able to know more deeply why a certain person could be thinking in a certain way and accepting more by whom they are instead of, as you said, judging them and criticizing the ideas or the performance that someone may be having. Because based on my experience, there is always a why someone behaves in a certain manner. But if we take the time to, I don't know, to ask some questions, to try to understand the situation, to empathize, so in short words will be for me will be first communication, and as you said as well, to trust one each other and to work as a team, being able to hear, to receive feedback, to take it in a good way, and that way, I mean, the team will be creating an acceptance environment because everyone will be feeling comfortable about sharing ideas and not only hearing that from the boss.
Yep.
So thank you. That was a good discussion in that question. So the next one says, what do your group norms have to do with the effective team building?
I think it's, I mean,
go ahead.
Oh, go for it, Kevin.
Thank
You
you.
want me to go? Or you go for it. You go for it, Kevin.
What I would like to say about this is that if we know this, I mean, the limits, and as well we show respect, we will be able to create a good environment. Because if we do not respect one each other, I mean, we can start creating, I don't know, those type of feelings that won't help. But yes, just to let it be. And I mean, if we don't like something, to try to understand what the best thing for the team would be.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Kind of going off of that. So, like my wife, she's an elementary school teacher major, elementary ed major, and so she's going into her student teaching. So she's trying to figure out, how she would set up her classroom with classroom rules, and this just kind of reminded me about the importance of group norms and the effective, that has to do with team building. As we learned that way back in kindergarten, where the first day of class we learn the protocols of how the class is run. We have to go to the bathroom, we raise our hand. If you have a question, you raise your hand. If someone else is speaking, then you give them, their time to speak. And we get these norms or how the class is going to be run. And if we follow those norms, within our elementary school class, that we've learned, then our learning increases by so much more. We're able to pay attention to what the teacher is saying. We're able to learn our ABCs and, our 1, 2, 3s. And I think that kind of carries on to us. And I think a lot of times we feel like we grow out, we feel like, oh, we don't need those norms anymore. I don't need to raise my hand, or, I don't need to do these little things that we learned in kindergarten. But those little lessons that we learned, way far back when we were little are the same principles that help us become more effective, people in the business world. And with teamwork and effective team building is, if we, in our sense, raise our hand or, allow others to speak or so on in whatever case it might be, we're able to be more effective with our time that we have to solve those issues that have arisen for our group.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I agree with that. And, there definitely is structure for a reason, and just like you were saying, we kind of follow the rules, so to speak, and that definitely makes things more effective. And to answer kind of the second part of that question, which is with this current group, like, do you think that they're healthy or not, and what could be changed? Honestly, so far with this group, I feel like it is a really healthy group. I feel like we all, come prepared. We, have good insights. Everyone lets each other talk, and, we can kind of bounce off each other and learn things from each other. So far, I think it's going really well. I have another class that has group meetings this semester as well. And that group is not a well-functioning group. It's just like, Oh man. Part of it I think is because it's really big. There's like 8 or 9 people in the group. And so it's just, we're never getting anything done because we're just talking over each other. Well, it's like one person wants to talk about one question for 30 minutes and it's like we just got to get this done. No one wants to sit and talk for 30 minutes about this first question, so I think it definitely depends on the people who are in the group and how, I don't know, just their etiquette, group etiquette, I guess, is what I would call it. But
Yes, that is true, and thank you for sharing it as well. Because yes, that's something that I wanted to share as well. Because our group, it's only 3. I saw in the spreadsheet that are some other groups that are 5 or 6, and that can make it. I mean, still good, but at some point there may be some group members that do not come prepared, and they're just sitting there saying nothing and just not talking at all during the whole meeting. But to share what we really think, and to have the material being studied previously, that is helping our team. And I think we have as well a good environment because everyone is willing to share. I mean, we don't have an uncomfortable silence that can come across and only to make us feel uncomfortable. And
right.
just, I mean, that's awkward when that happens in a team. But thank you for as well supporting the team, for coming prepared. And even though it's only the second meeting, I mean, it's okay. It is feeling okay on our team. So anything that you may think that could change for our group norms, or something that we could do differently so far?
Like I think so far it's going well. I don't know. I don't really feel like there's much that needs to change at this point. But
Yeah, I agree with that. I wouldn't say that
Okay,
there's
thank
much
you.
that needs to be changed.
Okay, so moving on to the next bullet point says, how does psychological safety in a team increase the overall effectiveness? What are the roles of communication and empathy in creating psychological safety?
well, I think it kind of goes back to what we were talking about in the beginning about, feeling safe in a team, feeling like you can, like Stuart said, a judgment-free zone. So I think that's really a key to that. And yeah, I think communication is really important with creating that environment. I know I have one manager who is really, really good at communicating and, listening and hearing your concerns and hearing, what's going on, and empathizing with them. But also she makes it really clear what the expectation is, and what the job is. And I don't know, I feel like she's one of the best managers I've ever had, just because you feel safe, you feel like she's a friend, she cares about, she knows what's going on in your life, she cares about what's going on, outside of what's going on in work. And yeah, so I think it takes a special person and a special personality to be able to really to be that way, but everyone can work on it and can learn it, I think, too.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, just playing off of that, I guess I didn't have like a good sense of the psychological safety as I did like this last semester. So this last semester, winter semester, I took IBC up on campus, which is like you start your own small business. I don't know if you guys know about that, the class they have up there. But basically, they put you into big groups and you start your own company. And after a week of being in our groups, they sent us on like a 3-day, 2-night kind of retreat, where we did a lot of team building activities and stuff. And both nights we spent like several hours into the night in our cabin with our groups, and we just got like really personal with our lives and like really got to know each other. And for us, that was like a huge game changer for the rest of the semester. A lot of the other groups in the class, like they always had this hard time figuring out what to do for their businesses, or what changes they need to be made, or their communication was just horribly like horrible. And we just couldn't figure out why, because we just felt like our group was just jiving so well. And after reading this article, I really think it was going back to the psychological safety, where someone just opened up and was like, hey, this is like my life, and this is what I've had to go through, and this is where I'm at now. And everyone just kind of going around and saying that same feeling of like, oh yeah, this is where I'm at, and this is where I'm going through. And just realizing that no one is as perfect as we think they are, and everyone is as dumb as we know we are kind of in the situation. And we just we just realize that we're all human, and that every step we take, like, we're taken together, and we're going to make mistakes, we're going to have fun, and we can make fun of each other, but we're going to find the end solution at the end. So I think that was just a big thing for me, is just really understanding that as humans, I think we overthink it. We overthink our problems, or our judgmentals towards other people. And so when we open up psychologically towards other people, we're really able to see that I'm no different than Kimberly or Kevin. We all have our own problems. They're all different, but yet we all have them. And so I think that just kind of helps us bring ourselves all to the same level in life.
Yeah, that's an awesome experience. I think, it's easy, and it's definitely easier to just compartmentalize and to just be like, oh, that's a coworker, that's this, and not get a picture of the person as a whole. Because yeah, we all have rich lives, we all have problems, we all have things that we're struggling with, and goals and dreams. And I think that's one way to create a really effective team, and to build that psychological safety, like you were saying, to treat people that way and to get to know them, other than just like, oh yeah, that's the assistant that I work with. So
yeah.
Yes, that is true. I agree with both of you, because when we really take the time to get to know somebody, we start to show empathy. And not only it's a person that we're working with, but to empathize with every person that we're working with. That way we can understand why they are sharing those ideas, and why sometimes they may be having good days or bad days, and we can just be there for them. And that way we can support one each other, because the life is that way. There are good and bad days, but when we try to do our best to get along with them, we can understand their issues, and we can understand how the teamwork will be the best way to handle it. And yes, I've passed through that as well with my team. I remember when we're having good communication, I mean, the team is having a good performance. But when there is something that happened that it's at least one team member not feeling comfortable, or because has some, for example, once one of my team members received bad feedback from our supervisor during their coaching session, and then the whole team perceived that feeling, and then the things for the team that month were not going okay. But then in another meeting, this person offered an apology, as well as the supervisor. And when we become into that position, that we care more about the team more than an experience, that can really make the difference. Because that way our team has been able to overcome the different challenges that we all may face in our jobs. And that is really creating this psychological safety, because we can feel comfortable about showing in reality who we are, what our goals are, and what are the things that we would like to get from our jobs done. So for the next question, this one says, how does sharing personal I'm sorry, how does sharing personal experience and being vulnerable influence team dynamics? Think of the example of Sakaguchi. Do you have any personal examples of this in organizations you're involved in?
I mean, I can just say like right now, just with my new job working landscaping, this has been like huge. We're like, I'm in a group of guys. There's only 4 of us, but the spread of our lives is like way huge. There's a kid graduating from high school, then there's me who's kind of like finishing up college, um, and then we've got 2 guys who are from Mexico. One, he just got married and is like expecting a kid in September, and he's like not even with his wife, and like having that whole ordeal. And then our lead is also from Mexico, and he just went through a divorce, and he's away from his family. He's here in Mexico, or sorry, he's here in the United States, and just kind of like that whole dynamic of us just being able to open about our own personal lives has really brought us together, especially since there's that dynamic of language barrier. I mean, I speak Spanish, so I can speak to the everybody because I speak Spanish and English. But the 2 guys from Mexico, they don't speak English very well, and so it's really hard for them to communicate with this kid from high school who doesn't speak Spanish. But as we're able to somewhat communicate about our lives and our different experiences and our different struggles, we're able to laugh and just kind of enjoy this time together where I've talked to a lot of other guys who are with people who don't speak very good English or speak English very well, and they don't speak Spanish, and their experience at work is just not the same. They kind of are like, work is horrible because it's just silent because no one's really trying to communicate with one another. But the dynamic that we've been able to create in our group, because our lead has kind of taken the initiative and trying to get us to communicate a lot more with one another and try to break that language barrier, has just been a really cool experience. It's been really fun. And this kid who doesn't speak Spanish is starting to learn Spanish, but even like in a week or so, he's been able to pick up quite a bit, and has been able to communicate as well as those who are from Mexico have been able to better their English a little bit more, and they were able to communicate and continue learning as a group. So that's pretty cool.
Wow.
Yeah,
Nice.
that is awesome. Well, so if you guys want to talk about me, then just speak Spanish to each other. And yeah, I think it also ties back to what we were talking about before about, just like you were saying, just being vulnerable and sharing. And yeah, just like we were saying before, you see them as a person and as a whole human, and it just makes things so much easier. And like I remember an example of I worked in this office for several years, and the lead assistant, she was cool. I liked her, and we worked well together. But like I was giving this idea of, hey, we could like to kind of improve a system. And she just was like being really short and snappy, and I was like, hey, what's her problem? Like, I'm just trying to help and make this better. Like, why is she being so ornery about it? And a little later I found out, she told me that she was going through a really horrible divorce, and it's like, okay, well, that makes sense. Like, and so I think that it's yeah, like you were saying before, Kevin, too, how you can understand, like, oh, they're having a bad day and this is why. You give them a lot more allowance and a lot more compassion. And it's not just like, okay, like, what's their problem? It's, oh, I know what their problem is, and I'm going to be sensitive to it. And, just kind of, I don't know, it just makes things so much more enjoyable. And even when it's hard things like divorce or being away from your family and things that you can be there to support each other. And your coworkers, those are especially if you're working full time, like you see those people just as much, if not more, than your family on a weekly basis and on a daily basis. So you might as well make it a happy and, you know, supportive environment. So
Yes, that is true. As the experience that it says on the reading of this person, Sakaguchi, their team when their teammates just found out that he was sick and that he was going through something really hard, they just changed their minds and they started to do things differently. And when we do that, we can really see the difference. Because yes, as you said, Kimberly, with our jobs, most of the time we're just seeing them on a daily basis, and pretty much at the same time that we're at home. And if we're not making things to work properly, then we are just be having really hard time every single day. And I wouldn't say that will be something that can help us to improve and to have some progress in our lives. I think leadership is not only to the person who's actually leading the team, but we can lead from our own positions. I mean, we can show up and try to do our best, and we can try to do things in a better way every single time, and that way we can really make the difference. And yeah, I like the experience that we had on the reading, because I would say anybody could think of this person going through that, and as well in our own lives, we cannot even imagine of the problems that someone may be going through, and we can just see their faces and see them smiling or just feeling bothered, or I don't know, different things that can happen. But if we try to do our best every single day and try to understand what is going on behind the scenes, I mean, we can really make the difference. So we have our last question. It says, what can you do as an individual to initiate effective team behavior? What do you think?
I think it's just kind of all of these things that we've been talking about. You know, being willing to, you know, the only reason or the only way any of this works, you know, to have a cohesive team and to have that vulnerability is for people to be willing to share. And that's hard sometimes, to put yourself out there and to say, hey, this is what I'm dealing with.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so I think that's one way that you can initiate it, is to be the one, you know, obviously you know, you don't want to be total overshare, because that kind of has the opposite effect. But you know, to be the one to kind of initiate the you know, I don't know, the personal nature of things, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yes, I agree. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I would totally agree with that. I think both with Sakaguchi, and I can't remember what the girl's name was.
Oh yeah, Ross.
Julia.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
I think with both of their, you know, both of their stories, I think for Julie, it was somebody else who opened up in her group and just kind of started giving like random ideas for what they should do for their school project, for that one competition. And then in Sakaguchi's experience, you know, he kind of opened up about his cancer. And I think you're totally right, Kimberly. It's just, you know, being the one to take the initiative to just say, you know, we're all human and these are, you know, this is what I'm dealing with, or, you know, just kind of opening up, being the first one to open up. And because at least I know I've been in groups where I'm like, I kind of want to open up, but I don't want to be that guy who like opens up and then everyone just is like, oh, that's the weird kid, you know, because he's like trying to get all personal with us and we're only going to be together for a while, you know. But I think all of us.
Oh, go ahead.
What?
Sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. Sorry. So I was just going to say, I feel like all of us kind of have a little, you know, that little bit of us that just wants to open up and be part of a bigger group, or a bigger, you know, I guess make our group closer as a family unit. But it's really hard to be the one to make that first step. But I think, as you were saying, Kimberly, if we just, I guess, if you want to phrase it up, just man up and take that first step within the group to open up, then everyone else will start slowly following and participating in that, open conversation.
Right. Now, what I was gonna say is, I mean, yeah, someone might judge and might be like, oh, there's the weirdo who's opening up and getting personal, but that's not what you think when someone does that, right? Usually.
Right. Yeah.
And so it's the same, it's, I don't know. I always come back to this example of that my sister had. She, was just kind of having this thought of like, I should take this person dinner. And it was someone that she didn't really know that well. It was a coworker, she was like, yeah, I know them, but not really. And, but she just kept having this thought and this prompting to do this. And she's like, oh, I don't, what if she thinks I'm weird for doing this? And what if, like, just like feeling really scared and anxious about it. And then the thought came to her and she was like, well, would I feel that way? If someone brought me dinner, would I be mad about it? Would I think like have all these, I don't just like bad thoughts about it? She's like, no, I'd be happy. And I think, oh, wow, what a nice gesture. That's so kind of them, and so most often that's going to be the response. And if it's not, then it's the other person's problem, right?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yes, that's totally true. I mean, we can do our part and we can work on the things that we can control, but we cannot go over somebody else's behavior and try to change them. I mean, it's their issue if they do not want to collaborate. I mean, we can do our part and just let them be as well. I mean, if not at the beginning, on the pathway, they may start acting up differently. I mean, at their own. Well, so for the conclusion, so far our discussion has been covering to be an open-minded person, try to be collaborative, responsible, but as well at the same time showing respect to one each other. As well, we discuss about communication being the key, and as well to trust one each other, to show empathy, to really understand people that we're working with, to not be ashamed about trying to be different, to create teamwork. You might think, I mean, we're still having, I don't know, 11, 10 more discussions every single week. So, I mean, we will as well be having time to share one each other. And that is something that we can do as well in this team. And not only at our jobs, but as well with our families, at church, at our callings, at our neighborhood. We can be a leader everywhere that can be at and make the difference. So anybody else who would like to share anything else?
Nope, I'm good.
Yeah, I don't think so. I agree with that. That's a good summary there, Kevin. Yep.
Thank you. So, well, I mean, this agenda was not that long as the one you had last week, Kimberly. So I think it was a good discussion as well. So the last point is just to select one group member to be the next group leader. So are you gonna be
I can do that.
Okay, thank you. So then thank you guys for meeting tonight and having a great discussion. So I'll be sharing with you the link as well, so we all can submit it from our own end.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Okay.
Awesome. Thanks,
guys.
Have a good day.
Have a good week.
Goodbye.